everybody. This is Jack Hammer, and it is Tuesday night, which means it is time for Niner Chatter. Your chance as the 49er faithful to come in and sound off and let me know your thoughts on how the 49ers have been doing so far this season and all the different topics that you might want to discuss. It was a really gritty win on Sunday against the Eagles, 17-11. There wasn't a whole lot of plays that were really pretty, but there was a really good, hard-fought team win, I felt. A lot of positives to take away from that game, maybe a few things to be a little bit nervous about, but one of the main things for me that I think folks need to remember is the NFL, you can't really take a whole lot from week one game to the next and so on throughout the course of an NFL season. There's just way too much that transpires on a week-to-week basis. For example, go back and look what the 49ers did in week one and how easily they were able to run the ball in week one and how much they struggled with it in week two. Completely different types of defenses that they're facing, completely different opponents, and things, just everything kind of changes on a week-to-week basis. So, there's a lot of different things to get into. I have a couple of people on the line already, and I know one of them wants to argue with me and fight with me, so I'm looking forward to that one. I can't wait for that. And but let's go ahead and we'll just jump into it, and then I'll talk more about the game if I need to vamp a little bit as we go through for new folks to jump on. So we're going to start off with Korean 49er. He's always on these shows with me, which is awesome. And how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Jack. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
So I can't complain about any win because they're always very difficult to get in the NFL. I just feel that I think with a team like Philadelphia, when they were trying to sell out against the run, I didn't see any. I think I have some questions about the play calling from Kyle on offense, just because I was thinking when they're trying to sell out, that's when you could try to introduce a few new wrinkles into the playbook, and I don't think I saw any of that. If maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that there weren't any new wrinkles. I think what happened was the 49ers got themselves into a game where the Eagles defense was just doing a really good job of clogging up the running lanes, and at the same time being able to put pressure on the quarterback. They were basically rushed. They were able to stop the run on their way to the quarterback, which is a tough deal. It doesn't happen all that often, but they were. The Eagles have a pretty good defensive front. I think they might be a little bit underrated from the 49ers fans, myself included, coming into the game. But they were definitely impressive from my point of view, at least.
Yeah. Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett are both very good pass rushers, and I think Fletcher Cox I believe he's still on the Eagles, and I know he's still a very good defensive lineman. So I know their front was very good, but I thought, I do understand what you're saying, but they did sell out to stop the run and try to force Jimmy to beat him, and which to me that's where it's going to get unintentionally hairy, is that for the remainder of the season that the other teams will force Jimmy to show that he can beat them with his arm instead of, the screens and, the short to medium passes, instead of trying to attack down the field.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think that part of it was, the offensive line has been given a lot of credit with their play through the first two games. And when I went back and rewatched this game today, I rewatched the television copy of it last week, and I just went through and rewatched the coach's film of it and did a breakdown on that. And it's rough. I mean, the offensive line, I would say that Jimmy Garoppolo should have been sacked a couple of times in that game, but his moving around, I think, saved them. Also, him just getting the ball out of his hands quickly saved them on a couple of occasions. So it's a little bit of both. I think the offensive line, especially McGlinchey and Brunskill, struggled in this game really bad when it comes to their pass protection, a lot more than the stats show. I don't think there's a whole lot of getting around it. There was a lot of times where he had to move around, and I think that's partly why you saw so many checkdowns, and there was a few screens here and there late in the half. But it was a little bit of a rough game for the offensive line. They just could not get the running game going at all. It didn't matter what they were doing, whether it was inside or outside for the first half. Second half, they were a little bit better, but I think that was after they kind of worn down Philadelphia.
Yeah, when the offense was out in the field, I always worried about that right side of the offensive line, because it looks like, man, they were just getting the Philadelphia defensive line was just handling McGlinchey and Brunskill, and I was like, oh man, that's just tough to watch. even though they did get the win, but that did, as it's kind of like eating sausage. You don't know what you eat the sausage, but you don't know the process of what it takes to make it. All the the meat and all the other ingredients. So, but
Sure.
I am happy that Bosa and Ford are doing very well because I did not have any expectations for D Ford because of his mysterious back injury, whatever it is. I'm impressed that he wants to go on the field and play, even though he could, it may affect him for the rest of his life.
Sure, and Nick Bosa looked really good. I was really impressed with what he did. He had the one strip sack that should have been a touchdown for the 49ers. The Eagles got lucky. That ball bounced right up to that tight end that happened to be standing there. Otherwise, that was a touchdown for Marcel Harris. So he played really well. D Ford, I thought, played okay. He struggled with giving up contain a couple of times to Jalen Hurts and letting him get outside of him for nice runs. But it is nice having him back. I think this week in particular is going to be huge, I think, with this pass rush, because I think we're going to see the 49ers getting after Aaron Rodgers quite a bit against the Packers. But as far as last week, I thought the pass rush was pretty much coming up the interior from Eric Armstead and around the edge from Nick Bosa.
Yeah, the main thing I'm looking for in the game against Green Bay is how the defensive line attacks the left side of the Packers offensive line, since Bakhtiari is on PUP and won't be playing in this game, putting pressure on the left side of that line and seeing how they can hold up to that. I know Aaron Jones had a very good game against Detroit, but that's not saying very much, right? Not saying very much usually.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers had a heck of a game last night, but from everything that I heard after the 49ers game against Detroit, it doesn't really matter because it was Detroit, right? It doesn't matter that Garoppolo played good. It was Detroit, and Detroit's not very good. So I don't think that we should really say anything about Aaron Rodgers' performance last night. It was Detroit. Big deal. Nobody, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, one last question for you, Jack. Who's this new running back that the team signed with all of the other running backs dropping like flies?
That's a really good question. I know his first name. I know his name looks like it's spelled or pronounced Jocks, but it's Jaquez. I will get to that. Just give me a second. Jaquez Patrick is his name. He was from Cincinnati. They pulled him off of the practice squad with the Bengals. He's a much bigger back than what the 49ers have on their team currently. He's kind of a little bit bigger than think of what the 49ers had when they had Alfred Morris, right? That size of a back. He's kind of that size. He's a little bit taller, a little bit heavier, but he looks about the same when you put it all together because the height, is kind of accounts for that additional weight, right? So he looks very similar to an Alfred Morris from the bits that I've seen. And the fact that he's coming from Cincinnati means he should be pretty familiar with the scheme because Zach Taylor runs a Shanahan scheme. He had been with Sean McVay down in LA before getting that job in Cincinnati. So he's used to doing the kinds of things that the Friars are going to be asking of him. So I think we'll see how much he has to play, but he's probably right now would be the second or third guy for sure off the bench because there's no Hasty. So right now you're stuck with, you only have two guys that are healthy, which is, well, and who knows about Sermon, right? Because he has the concussion. He's in concussion protocol. So you've got Mitchell, who was able to come back in and finish the game off, and now this guy Patrick from the Bengals. So it's going to be interesting to see how the run game unfolds.
Yeah, and I do agree with. I saw you and Grant's video on the all 22 film analysis. Mm-hmm. I did think that Ward and Tart did play a very good game against Philadelphia, and we are fortunate to have them both playing well early on.
I agree. They both played good. It's kind of like everybody else. There, you all have some good plays, you have some bad plays. As long as you point out both sides, I think you're okay there. And they played really well. I mean, there were some really nice, some deep balls that they were able to do a good job of getting back and helping out on. And those guys really helped the defense out. And 49ers still struggling with stopping the run up the middle with their run fits there, but I think some of that has to do with the fact that they played too deep safeties throughout the whole game and basically left the run game up to their front seven. So, but yeah, as far as Tart and Ward go, yes, they're a really good safety tandem.
And one last point, and I'll let you go. Mitch also did a great job in punting and pinning the Eagles back deep because I know I'll take if you can pin them deep. I'll take that over a booming 60-yard punt every time, as long as you could pin them back and have the defense, attack the offense.
Yeah, those
Eh, That,
were key, right? Both of those were really to the outcome of the game. Um, the first one, I think it pinned him back on like with a 3 or the 4, something like that, and
yeah,
then Hurts had that big throw right after that, a 91-yard throw. If that had been out in the middle, like you say he had punted that ball into the end zone there at the 20, that's probably a touchdown because they're not going to be able to run him down in time. So that punt ended up playing into the whole scheme of the way the game played out. It's really cool when you can kind of that's what I liked so much about this game is it wasn't a clean game for the 49ers, but all the pieces kind of had to fall together for them to win. The defense had to hold up in the first quarter. Special teams had to hold up and do their end of the bargain. And then by the second quarter, halfway through by second quarter, the 49ers offense kind of started to get their feet underneath them, and that goal line stand just turned everything around. That goal line stand and scoring a touchdown right at half, you could hear a pin drop in that stadium at halftime.
yeah. So I think I know who wants to have the verbal confrontation with you. So thank you, Jack, for taking my call. And if it's Waruna, go get him.
It is Waruna. He's not going to win this one. I think I know what he's coming at, and then I also know some of the things that I've said before. So I know what he's angry with me about, or not angry with me, but what he wants to debate with me. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Jack. You have a nice night.
Hey, thank you for calling in.
Yep.
Talk to you next week.
Yep, no problem.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. That's a great call, and he's always on. Korean 49er is always on this. I love the fact that he calls in every week, and it's always fun to hear his takes on the game and his questions as well. I'm going to go to Waruna next. The fun part about Waruna is not happy with me. He did not like one of my tweets yesterday in which I said that the 49ers have a strong core group of players and so we should relax. And I'm looking forward to hearing his take on that. And then I think I know the weak part in the argument that I made as well. So let's go ahead and hear you out first, Waruna.
So how are you doing, Jack?
I'm great. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. Actually, I think I made a big mistake because I should not have replied to the tweet. I should have waited until come online.
and hit me and not let me prepare, right?
Yes, exactly.
See,
exactly.
You need to. That's all. That's right. You got to.
Mistake.
Next time.
Okay. So basically, I would take the win any day. That's totally fine because it's a strange season to begin with because Colts are already down like 0-2, Titans are 1-1. Then there are some other teams that we never expected to be. I think Panthers are 2-0. So it's a strange season. But the reason what I'm saying is now, what is our purpose for this season? I think that's where the question comes in. That's why we are questioning this team whether they are on the right track to achieve their goals. For example, yes, we can't be worrying too much about the coming up games, weeks ahead, especially the teams on NFC West. But we have to accept the reality that these teams are going to hurt you. At this moment, I don't think 49ers, let's say we might be at the best case scenario, we might be the third best team. If not, we are the fourth team in the NFC West, even with a 2-0 record on the paper. That's so because if we are going to achieve our results in this season, I see there are two things. First things, okay, target for the Super Bowl. If you are playing with Jimmy the entire season, it's okay. Not to start Trey Lance or give him any snaps, it's totally fine. So that we have to have a go at it. Otherwise, let's say we are getting 12. I think this argument was made before as well. Let's say we are going to get 12-5 record with Jimmy and maybe lose in divisional round or whatever it is, without going to the Super Bowl. So what's the purpose? Then you could have started Trey Lance and maybe get 10 wins, 9 wins, still develop him, going through his what you call rookie mistakes and everything.
Mhm.
So if we are not going through that path, if we are going with Jimmy, then we should always ask the questions from this team for perfections, because right now I see, you said yes, we have some very very strong players, core values, but if you take on what do you call average level, some groups are really good, some groups are bad, because I'm still not sold on our cornerback depth. I believe they are going to lose some games, cost some games for us this season. And quarterback play, again, it's average. I mean, I don't think it's still at top 10 quarterback playing in the league. So that's why you see the difference with the Rams. They also have they had very strong core of players, and they replaced the weak link. Now they look like a Super Bowl contender from week one, and they are playing like a Super Bowl contender from week one. So that's where my argument or question comes in, that we need to improve, we need to question this team, basically pressure them to do better than this.
Okay. No, and that's fine. What I would say is that, one of the things that I heard throughout Sunday after the 49ers win was how and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the 49ers aren't going to be able to compete in the NFC West with performances like this, right? Or constructed the way that they are. And a lot of that's geared towards Garoppolo and whatever the reason is. And I hear your point on the the cornerback position, for example, because that is a concern, and that's definitely an area that we need to be worried about to an extent. What I would say is, I went back and looked at this thing during the preseason, before the season even preseason got started. I went through and I broke down the position groups for all the teams across the league, and what I would say is, I think that maybe there might have been a couple of spots that I was off here and there on, but when I was done with ranking them, I had Garoppolo as my fourth quarterback in the league in the West. But when you break up the rest of the roster, the 49ers still came out at 20, at right there with the Rams as the top two, ahead of Arizona and Seattle. I still feel that that's the case. Garoppolo is who he is, and even with as bad as everybody thought he was in 2019, the team was able to still be really successful, and that's because the way that they play. That the defense has got. You can have the best quarterback in the league, and if your defense isn't good, you're not gonna get to the Super Bowl or go deep in the playoffs or maybe even make the playoffs. Right? You need to have all your faces playing together, and that's the thing with the 49ers that I think people get lost in the weeds about with this whole thing, is that. Yes, Jimmy Garoppolo is probably I would argue maybe there might be a chance to say he's a third, but he's definitely at the bottom of the quarterbacks in the NFC West. But the roster itself is extremely good, and the cornerback position, for example, they've did a better job of building that up. They don't have anybody that stands out. Diamondo Lenore, I think, has been a revelation in the first 2 weeks, and we're going to find out a lot more about him over these next 3 weeks when he's got to go up against Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson in particular, and see if he's still as good as we think he is. And if Emmanuel Moseley comes back, I think that helps as well. Josh Norman is a much better veteran presence than what they had last year behind the starters. I would say the same thing with Kirkpatrick as well. I just think the 49ers are a much deeper team to deal with this kind of stuff, and the injuries at the running back position are a concern. But if you're going to lose a position, I think running back is probably the one that you want to lose it at. I think they can fill those spots a little bit easier, and it's going to put a little bit more pressure on Garoppolo. But I think that if the offensive line can hold up and give him the time like they gave him in Detroit, they're going to be fine. I think the Philadelphia game was just a little bit different scenario. The home opener for Philadelphia. The place is going crazy. It's a really good defensive front. Garoppolo was not good the first quarter, but the second quarter he started to get himself a little bit under his feet underneath him. The running game started moving the ball a little bit. They were never really consistent with that, and they just found a way to win. And I think that's the deal with Garoppolo leading the 49ers. Is I think people lose track of the fact that he's never had a losing record in a season that he's played in. Even last year, as bad as he was 3-3, and he's better now. And same thing with this. We're off to a 2-0. That they're off to a 2-0 start this year. If you have Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Jimmy Ward, and Fred Warner, I think that's the core that I'm talking about, right? I think that just you build around those guys, and they have a really strong group to work around. So as long as those guys stay healthy, I think this team's going to be really good.
Okay. I think my only question is that, yes, for this team to win, the defense has to play week in, week out at, let's say at their very best. But let's say defense has a off day. Does the offense has the ability, or has the offense shown the ability that they can play catch-up football if they are trailing behind by a couple of touchdowns, like how Titans came back against Seahawks? Do they have that ability? That's the other question I have, because even last year the defense wasn't that bad, even with the injuries. Any other team would have just been devastated by those kind of injuries, always giving away 30 points, 40 points, but it was not the case. But my question is, when it comes to can we, for example, can we be like Baltimore Ravens when they beat Chiefs? They were really down, but still they had whatever the offense to come back from that and beat that team. So are we there yet?
Okay, we don't. It's hard to say, right? Because we haven't seen them get put in that position. What we saw though was we saw them blow out the Lions in the first 3 quarters of the game, right? The fourth quarter, whatever you want to say about the fourth quarter of that game, but they were hardly on the field. The offense was hardly on the field in the fourth quarter of that game, right? They had 2 possessions, and one of them was I think right as they fumbled, on the fumble again and whatnot. So they were hardly on the field in the fourth quarter. The third quarter, they scored 10 points. The first half of the game last week was rough, what have you. I think you ask about if they have the weapons. What weapons do they not have? Did they have in 2019 that they don't have now? That's my question to you. On the offensive side.
Yes, they have the weapons. Are they using them properly? Or are they showing that they are willing to use them properly at the moment? It seems like offense is a very basic version at the moment. I'm not sure whether that Kyle is doing it intentionally just to make sure that.
I don't think that he held them back at all in the first half of the Lions game when they had to get. When you're up 31-10 at halftime, you're not going to come out in the second half bombs away, right? You're going to come out and you're up. They were up 41-17 in that game, and I don't really know, like in the Lions game where people are, because I've heard that game brought up as part of the fact that they didn't do well in the second half of that game, but they scored 10 points. They were blowing them out. Last week they just struggled. They were on the road against a team that was playing their home opener, and they struggled for a quarter. They had three bad possessions. They had the 3 and outs, and some of that was on Garoppolo not making the throws. There was a really bad drop on a screen pass to Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is one of the best weapons they have, right? They're trying to get him the ball in one of the ways that they usually do, which is on the screen. I know it's the ball was wobbling like crazy, but it hits him in the hands and he drops it because he turns his head. And then from there, once they started the second quarter, they started moving the ball. The only reason what cost them that was they had 1st and 10 across midfield for the first time in the game, and they get a crackback block call on Mohamed Sanu. So instead of having first and 10 turns to first and 25, and then on that first and 25, Garoppolo misses the throw to
Trent Sherfield.
Trent Sherfield, right? Bad miss. There's no denying that's a bad miss. But the next play, it's not like. Let me take a step and kind of explain part of where all of the different things that are going through my head, because one of the conversations that I see last night is, well, did Shanahan back off and just start throwing all the screens and everything because Garoppolo couldn't hit the throws? Well, if that's the case, when it's 2nd and 25 and he just missed badly, the very next play he throws it 19 yards for a first down or 17 yards for a first down to Deebo Samuel. That goes against everything that thought process, right? And then I didn't like his next play call because now he has 3rd and 8 and he gives a handoff to Deebo Samuel. What the heck was that? But I think you've got to look at the way that Shanahan calls the game based off of what's transpiring in front of him. He has a plan, but he changes up his plan based on what's happening, and we saw that in this game. The pass rush was giving him fits, and you can say, like, not you, but people can argue whatever they want about Garoppolo's play, but he's saving that offensive line right now from having more sacks and things like that because of his ability to get the ball out of his hand quick and what have you. And his moving around is so much better. His moving around looks like 2017. So he definitely looks better with that.
Agree with that.
So I think, like, I understand, like, the hand wringing over this, but I'm telling you, if it's take the game in, go against Green Bay this week. Green Bay's defense isn't Philadelphia's defense as much as whatever, right? The Philadelphia defense that was out there in the first half until Brandon Graham got hurt, that's a different defense than the 49ers even faced after he got hurt. And that's a different defense that teams are going to be facing the rest of the way. So, like, when let's say, for example, the Rams go up against Philadelphia, let's say they blow them out and everybody's going to be, right? They're going to lose their mind over it, but they're not playing the same defense that the 49ers played. Just like the 49ers, after week 1, everybody thought that the 49ers were going to go, it was going to be a cakewalk against Green Bay, right? Green Bay's awful. They could that score 38-3 or whatever their score was to New Orleans. But then look, yesterday they're right back on the path. And do I think the offense? I think I'm all off track from what you asked me, but yeah, I think they have the ability. They have the playmakers. They do, and Shanahan. The one guy that, if you're going to complain about not getting the ball into the hands of somebody, it's maybe to Brandon Ayuk, right? And even with Ayuk, I think there were some. Did you watch the film breakdown? You're probably at work, right?
Yes, I was at work. I couldn't watch it properly.
Okay,
yes.
No problem. So there's plays that were called for Ayuk down the field, but for whatever reason, they're not able to. Either Garoppolo chooses to check it down because he's covered, or he's getting pressured, or he's getting pressured because, like, on the one in route that he threw it over his head, that's a ball that he had to throw early because Mike McGlinchey's getting beat. Yes. If he holds that ball and tries to throw it where it's supposed to be thrown, it's a sack. Instead, he tries to make a play and throw it over the top of an underneath linebacker, and that's a tough throw, and it's not a good throw by him either. So it's kind of, I think when they play against, if they just play better as offense all around, the questions about Shanahan will go away.
Yes, I think most probably by the week 6, when we have the bye week, we will have most of the answers that we are looking for.
Yeah, I think you're right. By the bye week, you're exactly right. By the time the bye week comes, we're going to know a lot more about where this team. It's a bigger, because we're basing all this off of a 2-week sample size, right? So by that point, you're going to have a number of weeks, and they're going to have played some bad teams, and they're going to play some good teams, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, look at the Vikings, right? The Vikings barely beat the Bengals in week 1,
Yes.
or did they beat the Bengals?
No, Vikings are right now
0-2 or 1-1?
0-2.
Okay, so they whatever it was, they played a tight game with Cincinnati week 1, right?
Yes.
And nobody thinks that Cincinnati's any good, and then they go in and play at Arizona, and it comes down to a field goal at the end of the game.
Yes.
So I don't think we really know a whole lot about any of these teams at this point. So I'm just basing it off of the personnel of the 49ers and the little bits that we've seen, and there's going to be ups and downs. And when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, this guy's he's a flawed quarterback but he just wins. That's what's so crazy about watching him play and why it's so frustrating.
I mean, I'm pretty okay with that. Even yesterday, what I mentioned is that even during the first half, people were calling. I think first quarter, people were calling. We should get Trey Lance into the field. I would be like, no, 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 no. We should
Yeah.
not do that. It is Jimmy's team, and if you decided to start with Jimmy, let him play. Whether it's bad or worse, let him build the rhythm. So that's what eventually he did. I mean,
Sure.
290 plus yard touchdowns drive. So I think he deserved it. So if he is the number one quarterback, he doesn't have to be look over his shoulder every time whether Lance is going to get my job or not. So
Yeah,
I
and
really respect Kyle for that.
Yep, and I agree. I don't think that the flow of that game really didn't lend to putting in a rookie quarterback. Because the flow of the Detroit game, I think in that whole game you felt better. Even early on, they moved right down the field on them. You felt like they were the better team quick. And I never, and even though I felt like the Niners were a better team than Philadelphia, and that's how it played out, it took them a while to get going, and that's why I wouldn't have felt good about putting. If I put myself in Kyle Shanahan's shoes, I wouldn't have put Trey Lance in the game. Not because I don't think he's, not because I don't want to.
Correct decision.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a correct decision. I mean, I don't think we can blame him for that.
Yeah, why are we arguing about? What are we arguing about? No, I'm just kidding. We're on the same page with a lot of.
Yes, exactly.
But, yeah,
I mean that's my style. Usually, if I see like the argument goes against me, I always try to agree with the other person and just have a casual conversation.
no, it makes sense. I mean, no, and I think here's the one thing that I will say. And if you go back and you read all of my art, if you read the articles, go just skim through the articles that I wrote for Sports Illustrated, during the off season. I questioned the depth of the 49ers, the core, shortly after the season, because there are questions about the core of their team. All the guys that I just talked about as being top level players all have an injury history, and so there are. That's where I thought you were going to come at me, and that's where I would have come at me if I was you. Was the core of the core players that are all their top players all have injury histories, but as long as Garoppolo and Bosa stay healthy and Jimmy Ward, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and those guys. If those guys stay healthy, that's a really strong group to kind of weather all the other injuries. Because remember, in 2019, they dealt with a lot of injuries too.
Yes,
they were spread out a little bit more. I mean, they had games without Kittle, and games without Joe Staley, and games without guys in the secondary and stuff. But they were able to weather that, and part of it was because of Jimmy Garoppolo, kind of as a steadying influence, I think.
And one final kind of argument I would bring in is that why everyone is trying to criticize a tough win and everything is like this team went to the Super Bowl. It changes everything. Now you look at this team like 2020 is an anomaly, right? 2020 is an anomaly, injuries and everything. It's a COVID year, everything. So that's why now we are looking at this team like this is a team that is supposed to be in the playoff each and every year, a team that can win the Super Bowl. So that's why there is always high expectation. I mean, even at I believe at the practices, I mean, training camps, there were more than 20,000 fans were there. Everyone was excited. So I think that's where it all comes in. That's why you see on Twitter, any decision that you make, whether it's right or wrong, I mean, by the coaching staff and whatnot, being questioned due to that fact. Because now they believe that 2019 team, they have the core personnel, so they believe that this team also should be held up to that standard. I think that's why you can't blame anyone for questioning this team rather than taking just 2 victories.
Oh no, sure. I understand. I do understand that. I think the part of it, maybe I look at this differently because I've been around the block a little bit longer than some other folks and whatever. But you go back and you look at like the 1994 team. That was the last Super Bowl winning team that the 49ers fans have been able to celebrate. That team they had a really big game in week one. They blew the heck out of the Raiders on Monday Night Football, but they weren't very good after that. It took them a little while to kind of get going. They lost the next week to Kansas City in the Joe Steve game. They got blown out by Philadelphia. They had a rough start early on. After that Philadelphia loss, they went to Detroit and they struggled through winning that game. That's and so I think there's a standard, and I think what folks need to realize is it's week to week, and you're not going to win the Super Bowl in September, right? You can lose the Super Bowl in September. You can lose the Super Bowl in September because you can lose games in September that are going to cost you playoff berth. But as long as you win the games, it's about what you do in December and January as far as who's going to be there at the end. Football is crazy because it's only 17 weeks now, 17 games, 16 games compared to like a baseball or basketball season. So we focus on those games so much, but it's a long season, even though there's only a few games. But you've got to win. You've got to win the games when they present themselves to you. We learned that last year, right? The 49ers were, even with all the injuries, were a team that could have made the playoffs, yes. and they lost games that they should have won. Yes. This year they've won both games that they should have won. They've won them, and I think they've won both of those. And I think we need to understand that, and there needs to be a little bit of, like I said in I think the tweet that you responded to me with, right, to debate with me was, hey, the 49ers are 2-0. You need to enjoy that. You've got a good team. There's going to be ups and downs, but the amount of hand wringing that I see going on after that win, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, and I think that maybe that's from my background. The way that I look at the game is just different than a fan necessarily.
Totally understand. And one thing I want to add is that's where the difference Jimmy Garoppolo is making for this team from last year to this year. The last year Eagles game, Nick Mullens, he never came back, had misses, interceptions, and everything. Jimmy is not turning over the ball, so I think that's where the credit is due.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun to watch. This next Monday, Sunday night, I'm looking forward to that one, and I can't wait to get up there and cover a regular season game finally from that standpoint. But also, it's going to be a fun game to watch because I just think the 49ers are going to get tested defensively like they haven't been yet, and I think the offense is going to play much better. I just have a good feeling about this one. And real quick, last thing, because I didn't get to it, and you had mentioned it. You'd asked. This is the one thing that I'll say. You ask do they have the firepower to stick with teams, and that's why I asked you. Don't they have all? Tell me who's missing from this team that wasn't on the team in 2019. Because I think that if you asked a 49er fan, they'd all tell you that Brandon Ayuk is a better wide receiver than Emmanuel Sanders. I think that's what they would say. Am I right or wrong on that one?
Yes, that's true. You are right.
Okay, no, and I'm not putting you on the center, but I'm just saying I think he'd be.
No, I do really understand the argument. Yes.
Yeah, so I think
it's from a fact, basically.
Yeah, other than Raheem Mostert being injured, and not being around, I think this team has a ton of all the same weapons. It's the same guys. Debo's still here. George Kittle's still here. And even Raheem Mostert, nobody knew who Raheem Mostert was until he made some plays for him in the second half of the season. But really, Raheem Mostert had one game as a 49er that everybody remembers, and that's the NFC Championship game. But before that, he was just kind of a guy on the team. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I got that out because that was the point I was trying to make earlier, and I just keep talking too much. So I'll be quiet and let you talk. You take over the show, Aruna.
We had a great conversation.
Yeah, no, it was. I miss these conversations. I don't get to do the roundtables with you guys anymore, so I don't get to bark at you guys. So anyway, anything else you wanted to say?
No. I want to share a little story I found really interesting. I'll finish with that.
Sure.
After Bill Belichick won his very first Super Bowl, the next day they were supposed to go on a open bus tour through the city. That was the year, I think it was Carolina Panthers. They were going to be the next expansion team. So every team was supposed to name 5 players who would go on to a kind of a pot that Panthers could pick up. Before getting into the bus, Bill Belichick told one of his players, that, hey, before anyone tells you, I named you into that list. This is right after he won the Super Bowl. He was planning ahead.
That's funny. That's funny. That's the way it works, right? It never stops,
Yes.
right? It never stops, especially as a guy like Belichick. He there's a reason why he's been so successful in the NFL as long as he has.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thanks for sharing that. That's a cool story.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It was great talking to you.
it was. It was good. It was good talking to you, and I'm glad that I won our debate. So I will see you next week. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Have a good night.
Okay. You too.
All right. All right. Well, Runo is a great guy. I miss having all the conversations with the roundtables and stuff like that. He's a good guy to talk to. Some really good callers. We have all the usuals on here tonight. So if there's anybody out there that doesn't usually call in, call in. I got 2 guys on the line, and we're going to jump over to Michael Miller here real quick, and then we'll go from there. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing all right. Got a couple questions for you.
Shoot.
What was the average passing attempt in the air to a running back, wide receiver, or whatever from Jimmy Garoppolo this past game?
I think he was around.
We don't
I
count
think
runs after the
No, I understand. I understand the question. I believe that his intended air yards was right around 3.7 in that ballpark.
Kind of horrible, wasn't it?
Based on the way that the game was playing out, it was okay.
I mean, it's a dink and dunk.
It was a dink and dunk game, and like I said, I understand. I understand. Whatever PFF wants to put out there for their grades or whatever you want to say on the offensive line.
I'm not a big PFF
guy. That's fine. But I know in watching the game live, and I know in watching the film, that Jimmy Garoppolo was under a lot more pressure than they're giving, Philadelphia credit for, or whatever. Right? The offensive line struggled. The offensive line struggled more than they're saying.
PFF got our passing offensive line at 97.6, which is number 1 in the league.
Yeah, no, they're not anywhere close to that, and a lot of that is coming from the right guard and the right tackle. Those McGlinchey struggles at times. He's played good at times this year, but he's inconsistent. And the guy next to him, Brunskill, he struggles too. You can go through it and you can watch the game, and there's a lot of times where when they're not running screens, when they're trying to throw the ball down the field and not run a quick throw, Garoppolo's having to move around. He's not able to get back there and really get set and throw the ball.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the NFC Championship game where he kind of took the ball out of Jimmy's hands, throwing it, and just, gave him easy things to do.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I don't think that there was parts there that's partly what happened, but part of it was Garoppolo just checking the ball down because of the way that Philadelphia was playing him was basically we want you to try to beat us on the outside, right? And that's where you're going to throw the ball. We're going to pack in the middle for the most part. We're going to play you deep in the middle. If you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us at about 8 to 15 yards on the outside, and that's why the checkdowns were there. They weren't, if you go through it, there was a lot of short throws. There was obviously the screens, but there's also checkdowns because that contribute to it because the downfield guys are covered.
Yeah. Now, Deommodore Lenoir, and I'm glad I'm able to pronounce his name now. The only play that he gave up was that one where he slipped, and Jaworski Tart let him get deep on him. Jaworski Tart, in my opinion, blew that coverage. Yeah, I don't hold it against Lenoir, being that he slipped right at the line of scrimmage.
Okay, but that was on Lenoir. Tart's playing
Lenoir when he slipped at the line
because he slipped.
The ball was past 40 yards down the field.
Because where Tart's lined up in the middle of the field. They're playing. I'm pretty sure on that one they had 3. I have to go back and look at it again.
Watch it. Tart comes in instead of going back to cover the deep.
No, Tart's going back. The ball goes over his head, and he turns and takes an angle. The ball came out pretty quick. It wasn't like it was It was kind of a bang throw. He hit his back foot, hitched up, and threw it. Lenoir just didn't get his back. He didn't.
Well, I mean, he almost fell on the ground.
Right, and part of the reason he almost fell on the ground is because he let the DB, the receiver, got up onto him too quickly, and so he had to turn.
The
He
best
had to,
wide receiver to be drafted in the last 25 years.
and he had to turn and run, and when he turned to run, he slipped, a little bit.
Yeah.
He recovered nicely. Tart did a great. Tart saves the day by running that ball, running him down. That was a really nice play when you look at it at the end of it. I mean, it's not a nice play that the guy's running down the sideline.
Tart blew that though. I don't.
But what was cool about that is neither one of those guys gives up on the play. Tart gets a hold of him, starts to bring him down. He slips off, but as he's slipping off, Lenore makes the tackle. And if Lenore doesn't stay with the play, it's a touchdown because Tart wasn't going to be able to bring him down by himself.
And
it was just a really good finish.
The other deep one that was a touchdown before they called it back because he drove him out of bounds.
Yes.
That shows you how smart Lenore is. He knew he drove him out of bounds. That's why he said, "Whoop, he's out of bounds. I'm done."
He might have.
He knew he'd draft him out.
He might have, and that was a really good coverage. Lenore's fantastic in man coverage. He's a guy who I know some folks liked, whatever.
He's the best corner we've got on the team.
He's been really good in coverage. He's really good at man coverage. He really gets on top of guys and can run with them. So I really like his coverage skills.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a home run as far as corners come. We got he's the future.
Yep.
I love him to death. I mean, I still say it was Tart's fault. You didn't, but it is what it is.
That's okay. What's your other question?
Safety's job is to not let the person get deep.
Well, it depends on what you're doing in terms of the coverage.
Well, I mean, if you were the head coach, what do you tell the safety? Don't let the wide receiver get behind you.
Again, it depends on. It depends.
Nobody else was on that side of the field for Tart to have to cover.
It depends on what the coverage is. If they're playing cover 1, his job is to be in the middle of the field, and if they're playing cover 2 or cover 4 or cover 6 or something like that, then he's got to be over there helping out a little bit more.
So he's got to be in the middle of the field, even if nobody's there to cover, or you take the guy that's going deep.
Well, I'll go back and relook at it and see where I'm wrong.
Watch it. You can see where he comes in at an angle to cover him, and he blows right on by him. I've watched it 50 times. I know. So, I mean, just rewatch it and everything, but I'm going to let you go. I ain't going to hold you like the other person, but that's all I had to say. So, plus,
I thought you said you had a couple of things you had questions. What was the other one?
I want to tell Kyle Shanahan, but I mean, I don't want to get mad and blowing my head. Stop destroying Trey Lance's career. Get him on the field. Get him some playing time. Otherwise, you're going to destroy his career. That's what you're trying to do. They're trying to get this somehow magical first-round pick that a team's going to give them for Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's just not going to happen. We all know that's what they're begging for, and it's just not going to happen. Get Trey Lance on the field. Let's open up the offense. Let's start scoring 40, 45 points a game, which is what would happen if you put Trey Lance out there. Facts.
Okay, I think you're dead wrong, having watched Trey Lance throughout training camp, and I'll just leave it at that. But
who had a better training camp? Be honest.
Jimmy Garoppolo, but
with triple the interceptions.
Look, there's a lot of stuff that goes on when it comes to practice. When they move the ball periods, Jimmy Garoppolo was better. He just was. What you saw on Sunday, what you saw on Sunday at the end of the first half.
When we lose 3 out of the next 4 games, let's see if you have that same mindset. Due to Jimmy Garoppolo's lack of being able to pass the ball past 5 yards.
Okay. You asked me a question. Let me go ahead and finish, though.
Mm-hmm.
When I know what the stats from training camp were. I was taking them just like everybody else. I was reporting them just like everyone else. When the team went in to move the ball periods where they were moving the ball from, say, their own 30 down the field or what have you in 2-minute situations, Garoppolo was the better quarterback. And the reason that he was better is the way that they ran the 2-minute drill on Sunday. That looked like practice. That looked like what you saw on the practice field at Santa Clara. And Trey Lance, he moved the ball down the field at times too. Not as often as Garoppolo. There was a couple of times when he didn't, but sometimes he did. And
who scored more TDs in camp?
I'm not talking about the touchdowns that are being thrown when they're running just goal line situations and things like that. I'm talking about the move the ball periods, like when they start at the ball and they're moving it down the field like you do in a game. Garoppolo was the better at that. When they were running plays just in the middle of the field, maybe like working on, say, like a second down play, or maybe they were working on 1st and 10 where they're just working on stuff like that. Or let's say they were down at the red zone trying to just stick the ball in from there. Yeah, there were times when Trey Lance looked better. There were times when he might have made some bigger plays. When you're looking at those camp stats that I put out and everybody else put out, you got to take into consideration the whole picture. And I don't think that there's that big of a gap between the two. I like Trey Lance. I'm on record as saying that I would have started Trey Lance if it was me, but I also think that the 49ers probably would have lost on Sunday. I don't really even think. I know that they would have lost on Sunday if Trey Lance was the starting quarterback.
Why is that? The defense won the game and special teams won the game for us.
Because he would not have been able to because he would not have driven the ball down at the end of the first half 97 yards for a touchdown. He just wouldn't have. He's not consistent enough.
Okay. So Jimmy throwing the ball over everybody's head. What, nine passes sailed over people's heads during the game?
That's not correct.
3.7 yards in the air is his.
Because he only had eight incompletions in the game, but
count all the incompletions. How many sailed over their heads?
3.
I've seen about all 8 of them were sailed high to people.
Oh, well, I mean, okay.
Anytime you want to invite me to watch a game, we can watch it together.
Well, okay. I'll just say this. We know that his first incompletion was to Kyle Juszczyk. Where'd that ball hit Juszczyk? It didn't go over his head. It hit him in the knee, and he dropped it because it was a bad throw.
Hit him in the knee from 2 yards away.
I don't care, Michael. You just told me that every ball that he threw that was an incompletion was thrown over his head.
Well, I understand that, but did he hit him from 2 yards away and hit him in the kneecaps?
I haven't said that.
Extend my arm 2
Michael,
yards and hand him the ball.
Okay, we'll wrap this up, and this is what I'm going to say. I never said that Garoppolo was perfect in the game. I know that he struggled in the beginning of the game. That's what I've said. He played like
first 2.5 quarters.
No, he didn't. He led the team to a 97-yard touchdown drive at the end of the first half.
Debo did with that wonderful catch after the run, and that happened in the first game too.
Okay. Okay, this will be the end of it. How did Debo Samuel get the damn ball 15 yards downfield then?
One of Jimmy Garoppolo's 3 good passes.
Oh, okay. Sure. But that's a ball that Trey Lance doesn't hit, Mike. I've seen him throw the ball in practice. That ball doesn't get into that window with Trey Lance. He doesn't throw the ball with anticipation enough. That's why throughout the preseason, he had so much issues with the balls getting dropped and him having to overthrow the ball was because he doesn't throw the ball with time. He throws the ball late. He doesn't throw the ball on time, so he's got to throw it over. He has to overthrow the ball.
You don't like Trey Lance.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all.
You said he can't do it?
Right. He can't do it right now. I haven't said that I don't like him.
Well, I'm going to tell you, from preseason games to now, Trey Lance has showed he's 100 million times better. Have a nice night.
You too. Right on. That was a good call. I enjoy that. I'm fired up. I don't know if I want to go to OG Niner right now because he wants to talk to me about defensive backs, and I'm all fired up. I don't know about. Hold on a second, OG. I'm going to ask. Hold on. Hey, Jake, you want to talk about quarterbacks or defensive backs?
We can do quarterbacks, man.
All right, I'll be right back at you, OG. I'm fired up right now, so I'm going to stick with Jake and whatever he wants to talk about. But let's see what he has to say.
Cool, man. So all I'm going to say is pretty much. I agree with you on Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, he does a good job. He's not, the best at what he does, but he does a good job and he carries the offense to, when he needs to. All I'll say is, what defense in these next few games do you think really exposes Jimmy Garoppolo, even in the the offense that they're running right now?
Sure, I think the Seattle and the Arizona defenses are both going to be able to try to expose them, right?
Mm-hmm.
in particular, maybe Arizona, because their defensive front seems to be doing pretty well in terms of getting up the field and getting after the quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see where the 49ers are when they get into that game against Seattle, because Garoppolo he played Seattle good in 2019 the first time. He struggled early in that game. He came on and they got to a tie. He played decent in the last game of the season. He did enough for them to win that game.
Yeah.
He was awful last year, right, in Seattle. He was, but I think the Jimmy Garoppolo of 2020 is a little bit different than what we're seeing right now in terms of his ability to move around. But obviously the ball placement and that kind of stuff, where he's trying to throw the ball, or his heat chart, or whatever they want to call it, like the areas of the field where he's good at, are all in the middle, right? It's like a mountain. If you ask the kid to draw a mountain, that's pretty much Jimmy Garoppolo's strengths, and that's been he's doing the same thing now as he always has. It all comes down to if the 49ers can move the ball on offense, and if their defense can slow them down a little bit. But I think that Seattle and Arizona will give him the toughest challenges of the next three.
Definitely. I agree with you right there. I just think being that Seattle always plays them tough, but I think Arizona would be maybe more difficult for them because they have a crazy pass rush, obviously with Chandler Jones, and then obviously even the Rams, they have Aaron Donald, obviously. So what if he has to move around in the pocket? He might not have 2 seconds in the pocket. He might have 0.5 seconds or 1 second. Who knows? Just how Aaron Donald correct games.
Yeah, and that's where if Aaron Donald's causing them trouble, that's where you've got to be able to use Debo on the jet sweeps and the screens and that kind of stuff, so that you can slow him down, so that you can then get the ball down the field.
Definitely.
Hit him on the slants and the other stuff. Like your point on like Chandler Jones and Arizona, for example, if that defense is giving pressure like they did maybe in week 1, that's a rough game for Garoppolo and the 49ers offense in terms of the passing game. It's going to be interesting to see how they all play out. And I keep saying that all the time because it's really kind of, it's hard to project 2-3 weeks out, but yeah, I would definitely say this week, I would expect the offense to have a turnaround this week. I think they're going to be better.
Definitely. We'll see Shanahan, I'm sure, get more creative in those games. I think we'll see a lot more, like you said, end arounds and stuff like that. And who knows, what they do. But I think Shanahan will get a lot more creative in those games. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Definitely, man. So, yeah, cool. Just one more question. How do you think we match up against Green Bay? I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And me and my wife just bought tickets to go out to that game, so I'll be there in Santa Clara. So, just your thoughts, how do you think it'll play out?
Well, that's awesome. First off, that you get to travel to the game from Albuquerque. That must be tough because there's nothing really around you. I guess maybe the Cowboys are the closest, right? Maybe are they the closest to you?
Cowboys, Arizona.
Yeah, you're probably right in the middle, huh?
Yeah,
but no, that's cool that you get to come out in home opener, and they're going to be in their throwback uniforms and whatnot. I think the 49ers, if I was to, the 49ers have always have matched up really well with Green Bay, dating back like over the last 3 years when they played each other. Go back to 2018 when CJ Beathard was the quarterback and the Niners went out there and played Green Bay on Monday Night Football. Remember that? That was a really tight game. And as bad as that 49ers team was, they were able to hang in there. And Rodgers had to make a great play at the end to win it. 2019, they blew them out both times. And 2020, even with Nick Mullins and no wide receivers, the 49ers drove the ball right down the field on Green Bay either the first or second time they had the ball, right? They should have scored a touchdown except for River Craycraft, right? So I think the 49ers match up really good with these guys. And then you have the Green Bay offensive line is a little bit, dinged up. The 49ers defense is faster than Detroit, like we saw last night. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think the 49ers are going to have to score probably 27 to 30 points to win this game. I think they're capable of it, and I think that they're going to have to put Rodgers on his back. It's got to be a big game from D Ford and Nick Bosa.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with Bakhtiari out, I feel since he's out, that's a big hit to them. And then the way Bosa's been looking so far, I think it's it's going to be pretty bad for that O line.
I agree. It's going to be fun to watch. I don't know if the Friars are going to win it. I think if I was betting, I'm going to bet on the Friars. I don't know what the if I was just betting win loss without any point spread or nothing like that, I would say I think the Friars are going to win this game. I'm hope that's not just a homer and me coming out.
Yeah.
What's your thought? Since you're asking me, what do you think is going to happen?
I think if the Niners could stick to that run game, I think even though we're a little banged up at running back, I know we're banged up. I think if they run the ball and they keep Aaron Rodgers off that field and the defense plays like they've been, we should be all right. I think we'll take that game.
Yeah, I think you're on track there.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thanks for calling in. First time seeing you, so that's awesome. Thank you
sir.
for doing that. All right.
You have a good one, Jack.
All right, you too. Have a good night. All right, that was a great first call. Yeah, that was a great first call. So we'll get back to some of the other things that have transpired tonight in a little bit, but I want to get over to OG 49er really quick because he's been hanging on for a while. Hey Moses, can you turn the sound down a little bit? Because there's a lot of feedback.
You know what, Jack? I've tried it so many times and it still comes out, so I don't know why it's coming out like that.
Okay.
But how does that sound now?
You sound fine.
Jack, you okay, right? You're cool?
I don't know, man. Do we need to argue? It depends.
Nah, man, you're my dude, Jack. You know that.
No, I don't know. It depends if you tell me that Garoppolo threw 10 balls over the guys or 9 balls over guys' heads.
No, but I'm about to let's just say I'm about to school Mr. Miller on DB 101.
Okay. I know you're on DBs, and I know that you've been wanting to talk a lot about the Deommodore Lenoir and that bad the mistake on the outside or the deep throw. So let me know what you saw.
I don't know how it's Tart's fault to that he blew that coverage or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna respectfully let Mr. Miller know that when you're 1-on-1 with the receiver, because I played DB, like I said, Jack, I played DB before. The one thing you do not want to do is get beat by the receiver. You hang with them man to man. Everybody knows when you play 1-on-1, you're on an island by yourself. Let your technique and just don't get beat. Basically, that was always coached to me. And number two, Jack, you didn't go more in depth of what happened in that game when you and Grant were breaking down that film.
In particular, what are you getting at?
Like, for example, let's go to that deep pass. You're right. The receiver did run up on Lenoir. In DB terms, that's a big no-no. You don't let the receiver run up on you like that. That's why there's a backpedal. You backpedal to give yourself some room, give yourself some leverage, and then turn the hips and then go. So when I saw that, like, Jack, let Grant know, that's a big no-no. That's a big no-no, but it's all right. But yeah, that's one thing that popped out too. And Tart did save the day. I mean, what do you think about my thing? What I just said?
No, that's the way that it looked to me too. It just looked like he was maybe playing a little close, and he just wasn't able to get. He wasn't gaining up. He wasn't gaining depth fast enough, and so the receiver got on top of him too quick. And then when he went to flip his hips and turn and try to run with him, he was already kind of on top of him, and so that caused him to have to maybe kind of do it a little bit quicker than he wanted to, right? And I think that's why he slipped, is because he was rushing himself to get his hips turned, and he slipped a little bit, and then he was chasing him at that point. And I don't.
Totally, Jack. I made the same mistake myself when I played DB. I made that same mistake myself. So it's an easy fix. You just gotta rehearse it, practice and stuff like that. So it's a real easy fix. But I do agree, Lenoir's gonna improve. And even though I'm still not sold on Lenoir, I did going against Green Bay possibly. What do you think? Going up against Davante Adams is going to be an indicator of how good he's going to be. What do you think?
Who's that? Who are you saying that again?
Lenoir going up against Davante Adams.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's going to be okay. I mean, shoot, Lenoir. The thing that I like about Lenoir is that he just keeps playing, and he does a really good job of closing the space. Right? He doesn't really allow. He gets on top of those receivers really quick, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch, and I think he's going to get helped out a little bit though too by the pass rush.
And here's the other part, Jack. And I said it on your show when the first time I got on your show. My theory is going to be tested also, as far as Aaron Rodgers attacking the height disadvantage. So that's one of the things I'm going to be looking out for if Lenore goes up against Davante Adams. Keep an eye on the height disadvantage.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be some issues there, right? With the height stuff with whoever's out there. Mosley's not a tall guy. Lenore's not a tall guy. So when they go up against Seattle in a couple of weeks, that's going to be a disadvantage for him. Right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. And I believe he's going to do good. I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just not sold yet until he goes up against the elite receivers like a Metcalf, like a DeAndre Hopkins, and look at this Sunday night, Davante Adams.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to spend some more time watching Seattle, for example, to watch their run game and see how that's going because
their run game sucks, Jack.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that would worry me about Seattle more than anything is if they get a run game going. Because I thought they ran the ball pretty good in week 1 from what I gathered without watching the game.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever, I could watch those games pretty quick with Game Pass. The condensed version. But
yeah,
if you give Russell Wilson a running game, that's more worrisome than those big receivers because I just think that that allows them to slow the game, to control the ball.
I can tell you who's going to frustrate Metcalf if he's ready. If he's ready. Yeah, and he's known to do this. If you go back and watch his film, Kirkpatrick, he knows how to get into Metcalf's head. He's done it before.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
But yeah,
you're talking about from last year or any time in particular?
Yeah, I want to say last year or maybe the year before. I didn't catch the date on it, but keep an eye out for that. But as far as Jimmy G goes, nobody's perfect. Football is hard enough as it is. Believe me, I played in ugly games, weird games, good games, been through it all. Trust me. So for someone to say Jimmy Garoppolo has to be absolutely perfect, not going to happen. Not going to happen. I mean, he have to walk on water for that to happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's I don't know. I don't know if anybody expects perfection. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I'm pretty sure that people do. And that's not even just from Jimmy Garoppolo. It's just from whoever's playing quarterback with the 49ers or of your team. But Garoppolo on Sunday, I mean, and that's why I struggled with that conversation that we were having was because I don't know where the idea that I was, praising Jimmy Garoppolo over, that
I wasn't going to go there, Jack. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to let you mention it. For your caller to say you hate Trey Lance, that was a low blow. I think that was a low blow.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, yeah, no, that was a projection. Here's the thing. Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback because he's giving the 49ers a better chance to win right now. I understand the frustration from 49er fans with what they've seen out of Garoppolo. And I tweeted this out during the game. I wrote it. It was in my article that I wrote after the game. I think it might even have been in the article that printed today. Jimmy Garoppolo is an extremely frustrating, maddening quarterback for whoever. If you like his team or you're watching his team, he's frustrating to watch. And the reason is because he'll go through stretches like what he did.
Yeah.
Right. He was not good in the first quarter. He was awful in the first quarter. I'll give you that. The only pass that he completed in the first quarter was essentially a screen pass to Deebo Samuel on that little one over the middle, but that was a screen pass. And then he completed a little ball, 1 yard pass on the out to the flat to George Kittle. He was not good in the first half. He got better in the second quarter. And then I don't know how you can say that. I understand that there was a lot of screens going on, but if you watch that whole drive, I mean, I don't know how people, I understand that there's a lot of underneath throws, but there was a few screens, but there was a lot of things that weren't screens. I mean, taking a look at it right here, he had a quick hitch to Samuel. He had a screen to Kittle, screen to Hasty. Then second and 5, he hits Hasty over the middle on a Texas route, which isn't a screen. He takes off on a scramble for 7 yards. He hits Hasty in the flat for 2. Sneak for, runs the quarterback sneak to get the first down. Now you're 1st and 10 at your own 49. He rips the throw into to say that throw to Deebo Samuel was all Deebo Samuel. That's just disingenuous in my assumption. As far as I'm concerned, he ripped that ball into a tight window to Deebo Samuel, hit him on stride, and Samuel did the rest, obviously. But
Trey Lance wouldn't be able to hit that throw. I believe that.
You had to. That was a tight window that he had to stick in there, and he put it right on the money. And then the touchdown throw was an easy one at the end because they left the guy uncovered, and he worked his way over to him. But that was the drive, and 97 yards, 88 of it was from either a pass or a run by Garoppolo. So
yeah, and you know what? And I totally agree with you. For someone to say Deebo Samuel, that was all Deebo Samuel. I don't think Trey Lance. I mean, even though I know Trey Lance going to be the future, but right now he wouldn't have hit that throw. I believe that.
No, I don't think so either. And we saw plenty of that during training camp. There were moments with Trey Lance where he looked exceptional, where he would make plays that there's no way. There are times when he can make a play that Jimmy Garoppolo has no chance of making. Right? That just happens. But that was more of the exception than the rule.
Right.
There were plenty of times, and I tweeted this out this week as well, that Trey Lance missed the same throws in practice that we saw Jimmy Garoppolo miss in the game on Sunday. Balls to the outside, deep along the sidelines on a deep out, overthrown, outside, thrown wide, things like that. The throw that he missed to Brandon Ayuk was a bad throw on a ball that shouldn't have been thrown there, because that I think if Trey Lance had been in the game is probably a sack, because I don't think he gets the ball out of his hand, because he doesn't usually try to throw the ball over guys like that as much. I don't know. I mean, but to say that I don't like Trey Lance, I think that's.
I thought that was a low blow. I thought that.
Well, here's my thing, and people that have followed me enough over the last 6 months should know that I put out a full ranking of all my quarterbacks and who I thought best ones were right in this draft. I had Trey Lance at number 2. I had Mac Jones as the best. I had Trey Lance number 2, Justin Fields number 3, and then I had the kid that's in New York now at number 4. So to say that I don't like Trey Lance, that's just whatever. I mean, I guess I should just let that go. Lance is a quarterback who's going to make plays. He's the future of the team. We never got into this, and that
didn't tick you off, or it threw you off.
No, because you start talking about. I mean, I'm cool with talking. If you want to tell me that Jimmy Garoppolo stunk, that's cool. But don't tell me that Jimmy Garoppolo threw 9 balls over guys' heads when he didn't even throw 9 incompletions in the game.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
That's just. I mean, at least let's have an honest conversation about what took place. Even if you disagree with me, at least let's be honest about it instead of throwing out stuff like that. And
I'll going to talk to you about DBs too. But when Mr. Miller talked about that it was Tart's fault blowing that coverage, okay, that got me fired. I'm like, no. I'm going to tell you how it is, because I played the position myself. 4 years high school, 2 years junior college.
Yeah. So that's that part. And then, did you have anything else you want to talk about, or?
No, that's basically about it. Just a matchup with Davante Adams and Norwood. What I'm gonna keep an eye on. I think they're gonna. Let's just say Josh Norman play. Let's just say that, and Mosley's not ready. I think they're gonna keep Davante Adams away from Norman. I think so. But the matchup that really a wild card that no one's talking about is Kawhi Williams.
Yeah.
And Randall Cobb. That's the one to watch.
I think that the 49ers don't move their corners very often. They pretty much play one side or the other.
Yeah.
So
in championship game, remember Sherman did that, moved around on a
little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. But I don't think that they would do that with Lenore. I don't think that they would do that with any of the guys. I think that was a special case. But we'll see. Maybe
it'll be very intriguing.
We'll find out on Sunday night.
Hey, Jack, are you in California?
I am.
Is it smoky where you're at?
No, not too bad right here. No.
Well, it's extremely smoky over here where I'm at.
Okay, you're in Fresno, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm over more in the Bay Area, so it's not. At least it's not where I am. I've been inside talking on stream since 3 o'clock too. So I haven't really been able to check. So,
But yeah, Jack, you're cool now, right? You calm down. You're cool. You drink your beer and everything.
No, hey, I was cool. I was cool then. I just get frustrated when people try to have I try to have what I would consider an honest conversation with people, and when you want to start going off on different tangents just because you don't like a guy, that's where I get frustrated. That's all I
like
say.
Jimmy. I like Jimmy G. I just don't like his contract.
I mean, it's okay to not like Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm fully under of the like I said, like I tried to explain to Michael, which I thought was funny for him to go and tell me that I don't like Trey Lance. I wrote an article that said if I was the quarterback of the coach of the 49ers, that I would start Trey Lance, right?
Right.
And in my article, I said that there were going to be ups and downs and growing pains, and you're going to have. And so to say that I think that the 49ers would have lost the Philadelphia game if it had been Trey Lance out there, that's one of the growing pains that I was talking about. And
I know what you're talking about, Jack. I know exactly what you're talking about. Where you're going,
and so I see that over because there's I think there's some people that are in the comments that don't quite get it too. Like for example, let's just pull this one up since we're here. Well, I guess I can just add Jack Hammer to the list of a shocked person when Lance shocks the world. Well, no, you can't, because I think that Trey Lance is a decent quarterback, and he's going to be a good quarterback in the league. To say that he's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo right now, or he has things to work on, that doesn't mean that I think he's going to be unable to perform. I just don't think that in that game on Sunday he was going to play well. Put him in against Philadelphia, against Green Bay at home. I think he's going to be fine.
Exactly.
He's going to play well. Put him in against Detroit and let him throw the ball. I think he's probably going to be fine. There's certain situations where rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle, and I don't know. I don't know. I looked around the NFL on Sunday. Didn't really get a chance to watch the games all that closely, but from what I've heard and what I've noticed, the guys that were rookies didn't really play all that well.
All struggled.
Right, and so you're going to have those ups and downs, and so yeah. But I'm gonna.
That's fine.
Depending, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to go over or not. I was just going to finish up on a thought with.
I just want to make sure you're cool. I just want to make sure you're cool, Jack. I try to switch it up on you so you can woo-sa.
No, I'm cool. Hey, it's good to get fired up, and I was all ready to do that with Waruna, to be honest with you, because Waruna was coming at me on Twitter telling me that he was going to debate me, so I was ready to fight with him. No, I'm kidding, but I'm good. I'm down for a good debate with people, and I apologize to anybody who might have thought that I went a little too far with anything that I said there with Michael, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but as long as you're okay, Jack, we're cool.
I'm good.
You give me a fist bump, man.
Yeah, no, we're good. Let's go. So, all right, I'm going to let you go, and then I'm going to finish. I'm going to wrap up the show with some quick thoughts on Trey Lance, because there was something that I think that's going on that I'd like to share with people.
Sounds good, Jack. Sounds good.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right. So, thanks to everybody that's called in so far. I think we're clear as far as callers tonight. Definitely a fun one there with Michael. He's a good guy. He's a ardent 49er fan who doesn't like Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's cool. What I wanted to say, and this was what I mentioned in terms of Trey Lance, and I know that there's some stuff with Trey with where 49ers used a first-round draft pick on Trey Lance, right? He's not playing, though. And, is that a bad thing for the 49ers to have used three first-round draft picks, plus a third-round draft pick to acquire a guy in the first round that's not going to be able to play this year or isn't playing this year? They're not utilizing him all that much. And there's a couple of different things about that I wanted to discuss, and I'll go ahead and discuss it by myself here. Number one, it's different when you draft a quarterback in round one than if you draft a player at any other position, because there can only be one on the field at any given point in time, unless you're going to do a wildcat situation, and that usually doesn't work all that well for teams in the NFL. So you're either going to be riding and dying with that rookie, or you're going to go ahead and you're going to sit him on the bench. So that's one. The other thing is, the 49ers are in a salary cap situation, where after this year, things are going to get really tight for them. Even though the salary cap's going to go up a little bit next year, and obviously the years after that too with a new TV deal, they have a lot of players, particularly Nick Bosa, that are going to be extremely expensive. I think Bosa is a guy that they're going to want to re-sign. I think that's what their plan is at this point. And so in order to get ahead of that salary cap thing, they needed to get a quarterback in place. If you're going to take a quarterback and they felt like Trey Lance is the best quarterback in this draft, that's going to be around the best quarterback, say in year 2, year 3, year 4, or maybe the best quarterback at all, over the course of their career from this draft, then you go ahead and you take that guy when you did. He's not that expensive. I think that there's a really good chance that Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for the 49ers from 2022 on. I think that he's going to, there's a really good chance that he's the starting quarterback next year, that they move on from Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of this season. Heck, they might even move on from Jimmy Garoppolo at some point this year if they start losing and the season becomes lost. I think as long as the 49ers are in position, winning games, and they're not losing them because of the quarterback, Lance is only going to be doing what we've seen of him so far. So the whole deal with Lance, they spent the money. They spent the draft capital to get a guy because he's going to be a good player down the road for them at the quarterback position where only one could be on the field. And his salary cap number is going to be something that's really going to help the 49ers out moving down the road when they start to having to re-sign the Bosas and Kittle's contract starts to get bigger. Armstead's contract starts to grow. All these contracts are going to be ballooning here in a couple of years, within the next 2 to 3 years, because George Kittle is still on a lower price deal and so on and so forth. So those deals are going to kind of be ballooning up, and I think the 49ers wanted to get ahead of that. I don't know if they felt better about Trey Lance and the guys that are in this draft, and that's why they wanted to do it. I've heard, that thrown out there at times, but I don't know because I'm not in their building to know their thoughts on it. I don't know enough about these rookies or these the guys that are going to be coming out this draft to say one way or another. But with this whole situation, I think you just got to kind of have a little bit of patience here. Garoppolo is going to have his ups and downs. Like I said to Aruna, Jimmy Garoppolo is a flawed quarterback that just wins, and obviously the defense helps him out. But every quarterback in the NFL gets helped out by their defense to win games at times. So, in terms of the worry about, do the 49ers have the talent to be able to win a shootout? Like I mentioned to Aruna in this show tonight, yeah, they do. They have the same talent on the offensive side of the ball as they had in 2019. I think you can take out Emmanuel Mosley and Brandon Ayuk supplants him in that role, in that kind of a downfield receiver role. Deebo Samuel is off to a really good start here this season. George Kittle is going to be a guy that's going to make plays for this team. They're a little banged up in the running back room, but that's going to sort itself out as the season goes along. And you got to remember, in 2019, they got into shootouts in the second half of the season. They got into a shootout against New Orleans, and they won. They got into a shootout against the Rams. They were down by they're down in that game. And so they had to come back and they had to score 34 points, and they did. There were a lot of plays throughout that season where they had, they got behind, they blew that game against Pittsburgh in the beginning of the season. I think it was week 2, week 3, whatever it was. They were awful in that game, but they were able to come back and win. And obviously part of that was Mason Rudolph instead of a good quarterback on the other side of the field. But that stuff all plays into the way that a season unfolds. So, that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Just have a little bit of patience, have a little bit of faith in Jimmy Garoppolo that he's going to be able to make things happen. And also have a little bit of faith in the fact that that if he doesn't, and it gets to the point where he needs to be pulled out or he gets injured again, they have Trey Lance. And that's the other part of why Lance is here. Just taking a couple of comments really quick. E. Kim, who was Korean 49er that was on earlier, he says that his issue with the Lance trade is that they gave up a ton of assets to get him as a backup. I felt that they could get a backup QB via free agency or later in the draft. Well, that's, again, they weren't able to get a backup quarterback in free agency. That's what they were trying to do. They tried to, that's why they were talking to Andy Dalton. That's why they were talking to Joe Flacco. That's why they were talking to Mitchell Trubisky, that they were talking to these guys, trying to bring them in as free agents, and they weren't able to. And I think that this is kind of a little bit of a spinoff. I think that the 49ers originally, when they were looking at this board, and maybe I'm wrong, dead wrong, I think that when they were looking to get a backup quarterback in, I don't think that they were going to draft a quarterback at 15, having Jimmy Garoppolo plus a veteran. I don't think that's what they were going to do, especially with the guys that they were talking to. I think that their plan at that point was to draft Mac Jones, and that they were going to have him be the starter because they felt that he was going to be ready, and that a guy like Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco or Mitchell Trubisky could be a good backup behind him if he should struggle and have to be pulled, or if he was to get injured. But they were going to go with Mac Jones. When free agency ended and they didn't get any of those guys, and if you recall the reports, there was a lot of frustration, especially over missing out on Andy Dalton. I think that's the point in which they went ahead and they pivoted and decided they were going to go ahead and get the quarterback that they did, and that they were going to get Trey Lance at that point, and they were going to stick with Garoppolo. They're kind of going to be stuck with him because they couldn't trade him. They couldn't find anybody through free agency that they wanted to get, and so that they decided at that point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run with Garoppolo here in 2021, and take the guy who we feel has the bigger upside instead of the guy that's going to be able to play right now. And, we're going to take a little bit different approach and go slower with this thing. And then but in order to get Trey Lance, they had to trade up. They weren't going to get him at 12. I don't think that there was any way that he was going to get all the way to 12. I think there was somebody that was going to take him. Atlanta, for example, was a name who was mentioned over and over again for a quarterback at that spot, so that they could develop behind Matt Ryan. So I don't think the 49ers would have been able to sit at their drafts position and get a guy. So they were going to have to use the capital. And yeah, they got him as a backup this year, but the long-term plan is he's going to be the guy, and they're better for it this year. And I think there's going to be a lot of turnover in this team in the next 2 years. And so that's going to be part of why Lance can maybe be a little bit of a buffer there, because he'll be having that year in the system, and he's going to be able to be stepping into it. Even though it might be his first start in 2022, he's going to have been around the team, and he's going to have a better foundation under him when he finally does take the field. So that's my 2 thoughts on that. My 2 cents on that whole thing. Dimitri makes a good point here too. They were going to grab Watson before the scandal. Mac Jones is nothing but Jimmy G all over again, a statue with limited ability. Yeah, that could be it too. Maybe they were going to go out and get Watson before the scandal. Maybe that's the draft capital they gave up to use to get up to Trey Lance. Maybe it was Watson. Okay, that's fine. And I agree with Mac Jones. I would say Mac Jones is very similar to Jimmy Garoppolo. I like the fact, what I liked most about him is that his ability to throw with anticipation and his accuracy on his throws. That's what he's showing in New England. The difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Mac Jones is that Mac Jones gives you that type of performance at about a fifth of the cost, which I'm totally fine if I get that level of play repeatedly, and my quarterback's only costing me at a cost of only about $6 million instead of 26. If you had Mac Jones and were able to build around him, I think that would be fine. We'll see. I mean, like I said, I'm fine with Trey Lance. Lance brings a running element to the game. He's definitely more mobile than Jones. Jones is not a statue. He's more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo is. But as far as Lance, we'll see what happens. He's got to develop and become a better. He's got to become a better thrower of the football. And what I mean by that is he's got to, it's what I was trying to explain and why he's not starting right now. And in part is because he's late with his throws. He's not anticipating. He has to see it before he throws it more often than not. Of course, there's going to be times when that's not the case, but more often than not, he needs to see it before he throws it. And when you watch enough of Trey Lance's film from college, you see that there's times when he doesn't throw the ball because when there's a defender between him and the receiver. We saw that play out in the preseason. We saw him do that. There's a reason, if you watched my film breakdown today of the game, you see Jimmy Garoppolo throw that deep curl route to Deebo Samuel. That's the same play that that Trey Lance was called for Trey Lance on his first play as a 49er against Kansas City in the preseason, except for the only difference was that had play action as well to help suck the linebackers in. He had the same receiver open as Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo threw it in there and completed it. Lance didn't throw the ball, looked to the right, didn't throw the ball, and then started running. And it was going to be a nice completion if Ayuk holds on to the throw, but it never should have gotten to that point. And that's some of the issues that I think Kyle Shanahan, and I'm speaking for him, nothing that he said obviously, but I think that's part of the reason why Kyle Shanahan went ahead and did what he did and is starting Jimmy Garoppolo over Trey Lance, and why that's the situation that we're in. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the quarterback stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was definitely entertaining and fun. It's always fun to get excited and talk football and debate. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know that I'm completely off my rocker if you think that's the case too. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. I'd love it. The more you disagree with me, the better also, because the better I become. And sometimes I'm not completely shut down to your opinions. So hope you guys have a good night. Thank you everybody for joining. And like Josh over here says, smash the like button, shoot some comments out, and everything else. Have a good night, everybody, and we will be back at you on Thursday night. I will be here with Jesse Naylor for the Hammer and Nail show. Have a great night, everybody.